a girl goes almost skin diving into the ocean. A man and a woman are seen above on a mini boat catching fish with a spear. They catch a fish for the first time, and the woman looks happy at the man's accomplishment. She encourages him to catch another big fish that she spots earlier. The man holds his spear out to catch it, but all of a sudden, a shark comes out, opening its mouth to try and eat them alive. It turns the boat upside down, and they both fall into the ocean. The shark grabs the man from his waist and butchers him. The woman escapes, screaming and gasping for breath as she tries to climb back onto the boat. As she struggles to hoist herself up into the boat, the shark attacks and butchers her too, leaving both their blood in the water. The scene shifts back to the girl, who has previously observed nearly skin diving. She stretches her body with yoga. She buckles up and takes her surfboard to go surfing in the sea. After having fun while surfing, she comes back ashore to rest under a shade and spots a guy there. The guy greets her, which she replies to, and he starts a conversation. He appreciates her diving skills and asks how long she's been practicing. She mentions that she has only just begun, and the man compliments her, remarking that she must be very athletic. She thanks him in response. He then stands up and moves closer to her, commenting that it's surprising for a serious female surgeon like her to be so stylish outside the operating room. He offers her a drink, but she thanks him and takes out a bottle of water, indicating that she has her own. A girl approaches from behind and greets him, asking how things are going with her sister. He explains that he's asking Dr. Shen to teach them both how to swim, implying they are dating. The girl informs him that her sister doesn't teach anyone and then asks about her birthday surprise. He tells her to follow him, saying it's a surprise. She then informs her sister, Chandra, that they are leaving and asks her to follow them. When they arrive at the surprise, they find out that her boyfriend has rented a yacht for her. She happily kisses her boyfriend, thanks him, and asks him to take a picture of her and her sister, Shen. As they stand in front of the yacht for the picture, someone emerges from inside the yacht and calls out to the birthday girl, Yurin. Both Yurin and Shen turn around, surprised to see who it is. Shen asks who the person is, and Yurin, as her boyfriend helps the woman onto the yacht, explains that it is Timmy Chow's boss, Wendy. Did she just call her boyfriend Timmy Chow? Regardless, he helps Wendy up, and they all board the boat to leave. Timmy Chow tells Yurin that he will take her to a place no one has ever been. This might be true, as something there could endanger their lives. In the middle of the sea, Shen notices Timmy being cozy with his boss, Wendy, and shakes her head into satisfaction. She puts on long swimming fins and dives headfirst into the sea to sightsee under the beautiful water. Timmy notices the yellow boat in the sea from the first couple the shark had earlier butchered. Yurin sees Wendy hugging her boyfriend and goes to them, asking what they're doing. When they mention that they can't help themselves, Yurin pushes Wendy into the sea. Timmy hurries to save Wendy and questions Yurin about what her problem is, but she laughs instead. He tells her there's a limit to jokes and to stop playing around. She gets angry, jumps into the water, and tells Timmy Chow that she can't swim. Now, he has to pick who to save between her and Wendy. Timmy continues to swim with Wendy, ignoring Yurin as she cries out to him. Shen tells her to leave him alone, saying he won't care about her, and tells her to get on the yacht first. Timmy Chow and Wendy swim to the entrance of the yacht to climb up, but Timmy struggles as there is no ladder. Shen and Yurin are coming behind them, still struggling to climb on. Shen stares at the yellow boat from afar. Yurin nags Timmy Chow if this was the surprise he planned for her, and says sarcastically if he wants to be butchered with her today. At that moment, the shark comes and devours Yurin from under. She screams until she disappears, leaving blood all over. Shen screams out her name, and Timmy Chow tells Wendy to climb up because there's a shark around. Unable to climb up, they swim away in different directions. Shen, being quite the swimmer, starts to plunge towards the yellow boat. The shark chases her, and she barely escapes, almost being killed. She jumps onto the boat and picks up a harpoon to defend herself. Timmy Chow and Wendy also paddle towards the boat, narrowly escaping the shark. Wendy looks at her legs to find an injury and faints, seeing that the shark caused it. Shen sees this and presses on the wound, asking Timmy Chow if she's ever had a blood sickness. Timmy replies that he has no idea and begins to tap Wendy to wake her up. Shen looks around and instructs Timmy Chow to take his clothes off and pull out the sleeves. She calls out to Wendy, but gets no answer. Timmy is unable to tear the cloth, so Shen tells him to use the harpoon. Timmy successfully cuts the cloth and stretches it to Shen, who then tells him to come hold down the wound on Wendy's leg. She wears the sleeves from her legs to the point where she's injured. Timmy continues to call Wendy to wake her up and calls on her to hang in there. Shen says that what she just did will only slow down Wendy's bleeding, but worries she'll lose blood over time, calling her situation life-threatening. Timmy asks what to do next, and Shen replies that they need to find a hospital immediately. Frustrated, Timmy Chow asks how they will get to a hospital in their situation. Shen ignores him and tries to see if the boat moves. She finds that a rope from the boat is stuck down in the sea and starts to pull. Unable to pull it herself, she calls Timmy Chow for help. They both struggle to pull the rope, but Timmy Chow stops, saying it's stuck. He suggests they cut the rope, but Shen says it's important to get back to the yacht. Shen looks around and tells Timmy Chow to take care of Wendy, saying she'll go down to untie the anchor herself. Timmy reminds her of the shark, but she says that if they need to survive, they must untie the anchor to swim back to the yacht in the opposite direction. Timmy tells her to be careful as she dives. He picks up the harpoon to defend himself and Wendy. Shen swims to the bottom of the ocean and starts to untie the rope from the anchor. The shark swims past her, and Shen immediately covers her mouth to prevent it from hearing her scream. Back in the boat, Wendy opens her eyes and calls out to Timmy. He turns around, sees her, and carries her, expressing his happiness that she's awake. He added that she was beginning to scare him. Wendy looks down and talks about her leg. Timmy tells her that she was attacked by the shark and that Shen stopped the bleeding. He asks if she's alright, but she questions where Shen is instead, failing to answer his question. Timmy Chow declares that he doesn't know where Shen is. Meanwhile, the shark is swimming in circle, looking for its prey before leaving. Immediately after the shark leaves, Shen swims back to the boat quickly, and Timmy pulls her up. Timmy pulls the rope up and goes back to hold Wendy. Wendy thanks Shen for saving her, but Shen replies that as a doctor, she only did her duty to save her. As Yurin's sister, she didn't have to do that. She immediately looks away as they hug each other and tells them to start rowing away from the yacht's direction first. They use their hands to drive the boat by pulling the water backward. After a while of a very futile struggle, Timmy asks why it feels like the boat is not moving at all. Shen says that it's because the tide is out and they have to paddle harder and faster. Otherwise, it will become dangerous for everyone to be washed up in the deep sea. They start to paddle faster. After a while of going around and paddling in circles, they find the yacht, and it seems like they made some progress. They stop as they are tired of paddling aimlessly. They rest for a bit and continue after a while. The sun begins to slowly set, and night gradually comes closer. They stop to rest again after paddling for a while, and the yacht still looks very far from where they are now. Timmy Chow begins to blame Shen's deceased sister, Yurin, for her being with them today, and blames her for being clingy when he wants to end things. He says he brought Wendy with him to finally end it, adding that Yurin is solely responsible for her demise. Shen reacts and slaps him. Immediately, a thud comes from under. The shark is back, and it seems hungry and needs to eat something or someone. They all begin to tremble in fear and scream as they try to find balance and stability so as not to fall into the sea. Timmy Chow stands and looks around for the shark, and Shen picks up the harpoon, looking around for the shark too, to try and kill it. Timmy collects the harpoon from her, trying to prove that he's the man here, and stands gallantly to put an end to the shark. After a while of sending bluffs to each other, the shark goes away, and they all sigh in relief, but only for a while. The shark then comes back, seeming like it tricked them into believing it left, and tries to push the boat from underneath. A very angry shark then flies into the air, hitting the boat and almost turning it upside down. The gang barely holds on to their lives, so they don't fall into the sea. The shark's plan to make them fall into the sea seems to fail, or perhaps it foresees what happens next. The boat now seems to have taken quite the hit from the shark and begins to leak. Shen notices and commands them to remove their clothes to block the leak immediately. While Shen is blocking the water, Timmy immediately sneaks behind her and informs Wendy that they should pick up the anchor rope and escape. Wendy asks what he's going to do to Shen, but he says that they can't be bothered with. Wendy resists that they can't leave her, only for him to push her and tell her she talks too much. Wendy falls into the sea, and the shark notices, coming her way fast. Timmy realizes she fell and jumps into the sea to save her. Or does he? He's making a run on his own, and Shen jumps into the sea to save Wendy instead. She holds on to her, telling her not to move or make a sound, as the shark won't notice them then. The shark, not getting anything from their angle, turns and goes the other way. Shen and Wendy then climb back up into the boat. Timmy Chow, now making his way back to the yacht, is swimming away from the shark, who pursues him at top speed. He swims as fast as he can, and finally gets to the yacht. He starts to use the rope to hang the handle, trying to get it to stay so he can climb up into the boat. Shen and Wendy watch as he struggles, and he finally gets the rope on and climbs up. Now in relief on the edge of the boat, the shark pretends to go back. When he places his leg on the side of the boat to climb in, He slips right back into the shark's mouth and is eaten. Wendy sees this and cries for him. Timmy Chow is gone. The remaining 2 girls now have breathing space and rest inside the boat for a while. Shen later wakes up to look around to see if the shark is around and sighs in relief, as it doesn't seem to be. Now, night has come, and everywhere is dark. Wendy whimpers that she can't feel her legs anymore as she tries to move them, but they don't move. Shen comes to her immediately and picks up her legs to help her massage, and knocks them to help her feel a sensation again. After a while of massaging and knocking, Shen asks her if she feels any better, and Wendy answers that she does. Shen drops her leg, and they both sigh in relief. Wendy begins to regret coming onto the boat and reminisces about her love with Timmy Chow, saying he was the only one who truly loved her, and all others just wanted her money. Now true love doesn't exist for her. Shen listens quietly without saying anything and explains a story. It is about a vegetative patient whose husband visited every day to rub her body and tell her stories of the days, current events, and the latest movies. One day, she asks him what the point of his doing all this was. She says she can't hear him, and the man conveys to her that she can hear, but just can't speak. Shen makes Wendy understand this lesson, and tells her that she shouldn't think of true love not being there for her. After the talk, Wendy tells Shen she wants to live. Shen asks her if she's okay, and she says yes. She looks around and, seeing the boat leaking all over, points to a float. Wendy mentions that the float is what divers use to resupply in an emergency, but they'll have to gamble and hope the shark doesn't come for them while they swim towards the float. Shen asks her if she thinks she can do it, and Wendy says she can. Not long after the pep talk, a sudden thud under the boat makes Wendy scream. The shark is back, and their worst nightmare seems to have come true. Shen stands up in defense with the harpoon in her hands to attack the shark. After a few failed attempts, she finally gets the harpoon in its skin. The shark thrashes in the water, its body racked with pain. She tries to pull out the harpoon. Wendy notices her struggle and stands up to help her. They both drag the harpoon together, trying to get it out. The shark, seemingly more powerful than them, pulls them into the sea, turning the boat upside down. Now left with no other choice, Shen briefs her to start swimming towards the float. As they swim, blood begins to spill from Wendy's injured leg into the water. Shen, who is at the front, reaches the float first and struggles to climb on. As she finally climbs up, Wendy also makes it there, and they both smile in relief, telling themselves they are safe. Shen bucks up Wendy to come up and tries to pull her up with all her strength, but fails. At that moment, the shark comes, tracing Wendy's blood to the float, and bites her legs. Wendy screams in pain and begins to cry. Shen, now crying too, screams at her to get up quickly and tries to pull her up, but fails as the shark overpowers and devours her. Shen squeals out Wendy's name and starts to cry on the float, remembering how the others met their demise, and thinking she is also doomed. She continues to cry profusely and lies down on the float late into the night. She later stands up, feeling very cold, and starts to rub her hands together and blow into them to keep warm. She huddles herself up tightly, rests her back on the float, and hits something. She looks back to find a lock and opens it. Inside, she finds water and smiles as she gulps it down in excitement. She glances into the locker again, brings out a gallon, and smells its oil. She takes a look in again and sees a flare gun in a case. She assembles it, loads a bullet, and looks around for the shark. She closes the locker and lies down to sleep. As she is about to cry herself to sleep, she suddenly hears a boat horn blowing from a distance and stands up immediately to look in its direction. She spots the boat in the distance with lights all around it and begins to scream at the top of her voice to signal them. She picks up the flare gun and shoots it into the air. She signals while screaming that she is right there, risking revealing her location to the shark. Immediately, the shark notices and starts to swim toward her. She continues to scream frantically and loads another bullet into the flare gun to shoot again. The boat doesn't seem to hear her or see her signal as it begins to disappear into the distance until it finally leaves. And Shen sits in dismay, feeling abandoned. All of a sudden, the shark begins to thud the floater. After the first time, the gun falls and Shen picks it up. After the second time, she points the gun towards the water and spots the missing harpoon. She ties the flare gun to her leg and gets thudded by the shark again. She starts to use her hand, which almost gets bitten by the shark, to paddle towards the harpoon and pick it up while the shark comes closer. Then starts a showdown between Shen and the shark as she stabs the harpoon into the water every time she hears a sound or the shark thuds the floater. This continues for a while until the shark bites into the wood of the floater, hoping to sink it. Shen falls, losing the harpoon for a while, and stands to pick it back up. She stands guard again as the shark jumps from underwater, hoping to try what it did the first time, but only gives itself away and fails. Shen notices something, but it's not clear to us now, so let's keep that for later. After the shark falls, Shen stands up again, picks up her harpoon to defend herself, and patiently waits for the shark. The shark then comes from under the floater and breaks it from below, pushing everything up, including Shen, and opens its mouth, waiting for her to fall into it. Shen screams as she falls into the sea after the shark fails to catch her in the air. She swims out of the water with an injury on her head and hangs onto a piece of wood. She breathes heavily, trying to catch her breath, and suddenly, the shark pounces. She swims from it with all her strength and waits it out behind another broken floater. As the shark appears again, she stabs into its mouth and brings out the harpoon with all her might, but falls into the water, losing it. Swimming for her dear life as the shark chases her, she catches a glimpse of a rock in the middle of the sea and tries to climb onto it. She fails at the first attempt and notices the shark coming behind her. She goes for the easier step and finally climbs onto the rock. She holds her head to stop her injury and breathes a sigh of relief. She huddles up and falls asleep until the next morning. After waking up, her stomach is in pain. She seems hungry and tries to cut something off the rock to eat, but the shark is in the area. She cuts off something to eat, but spits it out in disgust. She gathers what's left of her strength and stands on the rock to look for the shark. Noticing the oil drum beside it, she stares as it circles her. Smartly checking her pulse, she begins to count in numbers, calculating the time it takes for the shark to circle. Thinking she can reach the oil, but only if she hurries. She removes the flare gun from her leg and stands up, watching until the shark is behind her. She jumps into the water to swim toward the oil. The shark notices this and immediately picks up its pace to follow. She reaches the oil and swims back, barely avoiding the shark's bite. She opens the oil, pours it on a rope, and uses the rope to cover the mouth of the oil, leaving it dangling. Shen stands up, slips, and struggles to climb back up. After climbing back up successfully, Shen picks up a stone to cut her hand and leg to taunt the shark towards her. She dips her leg into the water and screams. She picks up the oil and flare gun, ready for the shark. Seeing it coming from afar, and holding the oil and gun with her leg still in the water to guide it her way, the shark suddenly disappears. The shark comes from behind and tries to swallow her, throwing her into the sea. She falls and swims back up, the shark following with its mouth open. She gets up, throws the oil into its mouth, and shoots the flare gun immediately. It explodes, blasting her with a heat wave into the water. She swims back up, looking around, and finds the shark is gone. She makes her way back to the yacht. Plot twist. The shark she blew up turns out to be a small one, and as it falls to its demise, a bigger shark comes from behind to devour it.